Elias had always considered himself a professional when it came to mundane tasks. Delivering supplies across orbital stations had become almost a rhythm. Step onto the docking platform, check the manifest, avoid zero-gravity mishaps, and leave before anyone noticed your presence. Today, however, his carefully curated routine disintegrated the moment he rounded the corner of what he assumed was an empty maintenance corridor. There she was, Lysera, a vision that defied any human expectation. Her skin was the deep, shimmering black of obsidian, subtly reflecting the soft lights of the station. Long ears curved elegantly backward, twitching ever so slightly as if to catch some hidden note in the silence. She stood before him completely unclothed, an aura of grace and power radiating from her every movement. Elias's brain registered panic, fascination, and a vague sense that his heart had just tried to launch itself into low orbit. "Oh, I didn't, mean to," he stammered, his words colliding with the surreal situation. He backed up into a stack of hovering crates that clinked and jostled as if they were laughing at him. One of them gently floated upward, spinning with perfect precision before returning to its original position. Lysera's eyes glimmered with amusement, her long ears twitching like twin antennas, sensing his rising panic. "You humans are always so dramatic," she said, her voice melodic, with a teasing undercurrent that made his tongue feel like it had been replaced by a wet sponge. I'm sorry, I thought this was a, uh, restricted storage area," Elias blurted, gesturing wildly. "I mean, I was just delivering supplies, not, you know, accidentally invading private chambers." Her lips curved into a smirk that hinted at centuries of amusement. "Indeed, and yet here you are, staring at the impossible and stumbling like a frightened terrestrial creature." He flinched, aware of how ridiculous he must look. "A frightened terrestrial creature? I'll have to put that on my resume. Right under accidentally intrudes on alien vampire royalty." Lysera laughed softly, the sound harmonizing with the hum of the station. "You amuse me, human. Most of your kind would have fainted, screamed, or perhaps attempted to explain the situation with an elaborate bow or self-effacing apology." Elias swallowed. He wanted to apologize again, but the words stuck somewhere between his throat and the far edge of reason. "Well, I suppose I'm doing my best, and also failing spectacularly." She tilted her head, eyes glinting with curiosity. "Spectacular failure has its own merits. You display honesty, vulnerability, and humor, a rare combination." He blinked. Humor? In this moment? He tried to laugh, but it came out as a strangled wheeze. Honesty, vulnerability, and humor. Got it. Hopefully it's enough to prevent me from being incinerated by some alien etiquette protocol. "Fear not," she replied lightly, stepping closer. The soft gravity of the room adjusted subtly around her, keeping her movements fluid and almost hypnotic. "I do not incinerate. Not yet." Her smirk widened, as if she enjoyed teasing him with every syllable. Elias felt the strange pull of her presence. Even without touching, it was as if her aura wrapped around him, a gravitational current stronger than the station's artificial pull. He tried to step backward again, only to trip over a hovering toolbox that seemed to mock him with every rotation. "You should learn," she said, voice playful, "that resistance is rarely productive. Curiosity, however, can be more rewarding." "Rewarding," Elias repeated, glancing at her long, elegant form and feeling his stomach do a complete somersault. "Right, sure, I'm very curious about, station systems, floating crates, gravity anomalies." Her laugh tinkled through the air, musical and teasing. "Curiosity suits you, human, perhaps too well for your own comfort." She extended a hand, long-fingered and seemingly weightless, not touching him, just hovering within reach. "Come, observe, learn, perhaps even enjoy yourself." He hesitated, conscious of the fact that he was being drawn into a situation that defied every training manual he had ever read. And yet, the magnetic pull of her presence, the thrill of the unknown, and yes, even the absurdity of the moment nudged him forward. "I suppose, if you insist," he muttered, stepping carefully so as not to disturb a floating stack of supplies. Observing and learning. Strictly professional. Totally not awkward or terrifying. Lysera's smirk softened into something almost imperceptibly warm. Professional, yes. But do not mistake this for predictability, human. The universe seldom rewards predictability. As he followed her deeper into the chamber, the walls shifted subtly, panels of holographic starlight illuminating paths he had not noticed before. Floating petals drifted environment, reflecting the glow of distant stars. Elias stumbled once, nearly colliding with one, and muttered, "Great, floating flowers. Perfect. Nothing could possibly go wrong." "Everything can go wrong, human," Lysera replied, her voice teasing, but not unkind. "The trick is surviving it with grace, or at least with amusement." Elias glanced at her, and for the first time since arriving at the station, he allowed himself to laugh. Not at the danger, not at the absurdity of the situation, but at the strange, exhilarating reality of standing in the presence of a being entirely unlike any he had ever imagined. "Amusement," he said softly, letting the word roll on his tongue. "I can do that, mostly." Lysera's long ears twitched, a gesture so humanly expressive it almost startled him. "Mostly," she echoed, and for once the teasing felt like an invitation rather than a warning. And so, amidst floating crates, drifting holograms, and a black-skinned vampire woman whose presence warped gravity and expectation alike, Elias began a journey he could never have anticipated. A journey of curiosity, humor, temptation, and discovery, one awkward step at a time. Elias followed Lysera through a series of twisting corridors that seemed to bend reality itself. The walls were semi-transparent, showing the swirling cosmos outside, stars stretching into faint streaks as the station orbited a distant planet. Each corridor had a subtle hum, a resonance that made Elias feel like the entire station was alive and aware of his presence. He stumbled once, narrowly avoiding a floating console, and muttered under his breath, "Why do I get the feeling this place judges me for every misstep?" Lysera glanced back at him, her long ears twitching with amusement. "It does," she said, perfectly deadpan, "but only very politely, and it finds humor in your fumbling. I'll try to remember that the next time I nearly decapitate myself on a floating control panel," Elias muttered, catching his balance. "Is there a manual for surviving alien etiquette without embarrassing myself?" "Survival guides are rarely helpful here," Lysera replied, her voice smooth, almost musical. "Experience teaches far more than written words, and humor, human, is essential. It softens the edges of danger." He blinked at her. Humor? He was still trembling from the previous encounter, and yet somehow he found himself laughing despite it. "I guess if I survive this, I'll have the most bizarre resume in history. Accidental intruder of alien royalty, negotiator with floating consoles, flailing human extraordinaire." Lysera tilted her head, clearly entertained. "Your self-description lacks elegance, but it is honest. That counts for something." She paused, letting a small cluster of hovering lights drift past them, painting the corridor in soft hues of blue and violet. "Come, the observatory is near. I think you will find it enlightening and amusing." The observatory was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. A vast chamber with a transparent floor stretched over the swirling clouds of a gas giant below. Stars and nebulae painted the darkness, while small robotic drones flitted about, adjusting floating panels and instruments with mechanical precision. Some of the drones hovered near him, and he jumped back instinctively. "They are harmless," Lysera said, noticing his alarm. "Mostly, unless you provoke them with loud exclamations or sudden movements." "I think I just did both," Elias admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. "I have a tendency to yell at inanimate objects when stressed." Lysera's laugh was light, melodic, and it echoed softly through the chamber. "Then I suppose I will allow it. Consider this your first lesson in station diplomacy. Never underestimate the sense of humor of automated assistants." Elias managed a small chuckle, feeling the tension ease slightly. "Good to know. I'll try not to insult any sentient lamps or floating keyboards, though judging by my luck, I probably already have." "Luck is subjective here," Lysra said, stepping gracefully onto a floating platform that moved gently with her weight. She extended a hand toward him. Come, I will show you the heart of the station. He hesitated, staring at her hand and then the platform. Heart of the station? Does it talk? Not exactly, she said with a teasing smirk, but it listens, and it reacts. Be careful with your words, though your awkwardness might amuse it. He took her hand and the platform shifted smoothly to accommodate him. Immediately, Elias felt a curious resonance, as if the station itself was aware of his presence. Panels of holographic data swirled in response to their movements, highlighting constellations, mapping distant star systems, and illustrating the gravitational current. This is incredible, he breathed. It's like walking through a living star chart. It is, Lysra said softly, eyes reflecting the starlight. And yet the stars are not as alive as the choices you make within them. Every step, every reaction, every laugh, it matters. He tried to process that while keeping his balance on the shifting platform. I think I just laughed at something I shouldn't have. Did I? You did, she interrupted, her smile teasing. And it was perfectly acceptable. Humor, even in fear, is a virtue here. Elias shook his head, a grin tugging at his lips despite the absurdity. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I think I'm supposed to enjoy it. Somehow. Lysra's gaze softened slightly, a subtle acknowledgement of his growing adaptability. You are learning, human. Slowly, but you are learning. And that pleases me. As they moved deeper into the observatory, Elias noticed that small gravitational anomalies caused floating tools and instruments to drift in intricate patterns, as if performing a silent ballet. He reached out to steady a spinning orb, and it responded with a gentle pulse of light, as though acknowledging him. You see, Lysra said, stepping closer. Even the instruments notice those who observe, those who try. Humans underestimate the impact of presence. He stared at the pulsing orb, then at her, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. I think I'm starting to understand. Maybe presence is more important than skill sometimes. Perhaps, she said lightly, her long ears twitching with subtle amusement. And your skill is improving, albeit slowly, mostly in terms of resilience and improvisation. I'll take what I can get, he admitted, laughing. Resilience, improvisation, and hopefully surviving without fainting or insulting a vampire woman. Lysra laughed softly, a sound that wrapped around him like a gentle current. You survive already, human, and you amuse me. That combination is rare and valuable. He glanced around at the floating lights, the holographic star charts, and the gentle hum of the station, realizing that for all its alien strangeness, he was beginning to feel a sense of belonging. Not because he had mastered the environment, he clearly hadn't, but because he had allowed himself to engage with it fully, to embrace the absurdity and beauty of the unknown. Engaging fully, he murmured to himself. That sounds dangerous and exciting at the same time. Lysra's hand brushed his lightly, and the platform shifted subtly. Danger and excitement are inseparable here, human. But humor and curiosity will carry you further than caution alone. Elias nodded, a mixture of awe and laughter bubbling within him. He had come to deliver a package, and instead he had entered a realm of floating stars, teasing danger, and an alien presence that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe, and himself. And somehow, he thought, I'm actually enjoying it. Elias floated cautiously down the curved observation deck, his hands brushing against the smooth, temperature-controlled railing as the stars beyond stretched in elongated streaks from the station's rotation. Every step required careful thought, as a miscalculated push could send him drifting into the chamber's center, where holographic star maps hovered like living constellations. He muttered under his breath, humans were not built for this zero-gravity elegance thing, but a small smile betrayed his growing fascination. Lysra moved ahead of him effortlessly, her long ears twitching with every subtle shift of the artificial gravity. She seemed to float, a dancer in an invisible current, with an ease that made Elias feel clumsy even in his own skin. Yet somehow, her presence was grounding, pulling him forward despite his fear of another embarrassing stumble. "Try to relax," she called over her shoulder, her voice melodic and teasing. "The station is not trying to kill you today." "Not today." "That's reassuring," Elias muttered, catching his balance on a floating panel. "Although judging by my record, the universe might consider me a walking hazard." Lysra laughed softly, a sound that rippled through the chamber and seemed to make the holographic constellations flicker in amusement. "You are unpredictable. That much is true. But unpredictability can be entertaining." He groaned quietly, floating closer to her, and added, "Entertaining, yes. Also terrifying. And humbling. Mostly terrifying, actually." She glanced back at him, a faint smirk playing on her lips. "Fear can sharpen perception. Terror can awaken ingenuity. Humiliation, well, it can teach humility." Her words were playful, but Elias noticed the subtle undercurrent of wisdom woven between them. They reached a small platform suspended in the middle of the chamber, its edges lined with softly glowing panels displaying data streams from the station's outer sensors. The black skin of her fingers glinting with reflected starlight, and Elias hesitated. "I don't know if I should touch." "Touch is optional," she said with a teasing lilt, "but observation is mandatory." He reached tentatively, and the panels responded to his presence, swirling and projecting holographic models of distant galaxies, rotating asteroids, and miniature orbiting planets. The colors shifted as his hands hovered above the controls, creating a symphony of light that made the station feel alive. "It's beautiful," he murmured, eyes wide. "It's like the universe is bending itself just to show me a private view." "Private views are rare," Lysra said softly, moving beside him, "and fleeting. Enjoy it while you can." He laughed nervously. "Fleeting? I don't even think I deserve to be here without making a fool of myself at least once every minute." "You already have," she replied, her voice warm and teasing. "Yet you persist. That is admirable." Elias felt a small surge of pride, which quickly turned to awkwardness as a hovering maintenance drone zipped past him, nearly colliding with his shoulder. He jerked back, bumping into a panel and sending a wave of holographic stars spinning into a chaotic dance. Lysera's long ears twitched with amusement. "Steady, human. The stars will forgive you, but the station may not." "Noted," he said, righting himself with a careful push, trying not to break the floating constellations again. "Note to self, stop being a walking hazard and start being less hazardous." "Good plan," Lysra said, floating gracefully beside him. "Also, don't forget humor. It is essential." He blinked at her. "Humor? Essential? In zero-gravity navigation? In almost being decapitated by floating instruments?" "Yes," she said firmly, though a smile tugged at her lips. "Humor makes the impossible bearable, and in some cases, makes it enjoyable." Elias allowed himself to laugh, a small, relieved sound that echoed through the observation chamber. The tension he had felt since entering the station began to ease, replaced by fascination, curiosity, and the faint thrill of being in the presence of something utterly alien, yet compellingly human in its playfulness. As they moved toward a larger platform overlooking a cluster of bioengineered gardens floating mid-chamber, Elias noticed small, luminescent flowers drifting lazily in the air. Their petals shimmered with iridescent colors, reflecting the station's lights and the distant stars. A few of them brushed against his skin, causing a shiver of surprise that he masked with a self-deprecating chuckle. "You humans react strongly to new stimuli," Lysra observed, glancing at his startled expression. "It is charming." "Charming," Elias repeated. "I nearly freaked out over flowers that float in the air." "That's charming?" "Yes," she said, long ears flicking in amusement. "And that is precisely why I'm enjoying this so thoroughly." He shook his head, laughing softly. "I feel like I'm a lab experiment, but a willing one, I guess." Lysra extended a hand toward a hovering flower, and it responded to her touch, spinning slowly in midair. "Interaction with the environment is key," she explained. "Observe, engage, adapt. You are learning human, though perhaps more clumsily than I anticipated." Clumsy learning is still learning, right? He asked, floating closer. I mean, I survive, I adapt, and I don't explode. That counts for something. It counts for more than you think, she said, her voice softening slightly. Resilience and curiosity are valuable traits, and you possess both. Elias glanced at her, feeling the weight of her gaze as if she could see past his awkward exterior into something deeper. Curiosity, I can handle that, and resilience, I'm trying, mostly trying not to float into trouble. Lizara's laugh rippled through the chamber again, melodic and teasing. Mostly is sufficient for now. Continue to try, human. That is all anyone can ask. As they stood together, surrounded by drifting petals, floating panels, and the vastness of stars beyond, Elias realized that he had entered a situation he could never have anticipated, and yet somehow he was beginning to embrace it. The alien environment, Lysera's enigmatic presence, and the gentle humor that threaded through every interaction made him feel more alive than he had ever imagined. And somehow, he thought, I'm actually enjoying this chaos. The station hummed around them, alive with light, motion, and the faint pulse of alien energy. Elias took a deep breath, readying himself for whatever the next moment might bring, comforted by the fact that Lysera's teasing guidance, and the universe itself, would make sure it was an adventure worth surviving. Elias's footsteps, or rather his awkward floating steps, carried following Lysra through corridors that seemed to shimmer and shift with every movement. The walls weren't solid. Instead, they appeared to ripple like liquid metal, reflecting distant stars and hints of alien flora that swayed as if in an unseen breeze. He tried to move gracefully, but every miscalculated step sent him spinning gently against the nearest panel, eliciting soft, amused clicks from the station's automated sensors. Lysera glided ahead, her long ears twitching rhythmically, as if in time with some inaudible music. She turned occasionally, flashing a small, knowing smile that reminded him both of his helplessness and his growing fascination. You humans are slow to adapt, she said teasingly, her voice echoing lightly in the corridor. But your persistence is entertaining. I'll take that as a compliment, Elias muttered, pushing off the wall to regain balance. Mostly entertaining, right? Hopefully entertaining is a good thing here. It is, she replied, not missing a step. Even if you nearly collide with every floating panel in the room. He groaned, ducking under a hovering console. I really should have taken some zero-gravity survival lessons before coming here, or at least practiced my graceful floating technique with a mirror at home. Lysera laughed softly, the sound echoing with gentle warmth. Grace will come, for now humor will suffice. As they moved, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceilings vanishing into darkness, while platforms of various sizes floated midair, connected by thin beams of shimmering energy. Small holographic drones flitted between them, projecting data streams and delicate light patterns that painted the chamber with swirling galaxies and constellations. Elias's eyes widened in awe. This is insane, he whispered. It's like I'm floating inside a living galaxy. Observation without interaction is dull, Lysra said, stepping onto one of the platforms and gesturing for him to follow. Touch, adjust, explore. That is how you learn the rules of this place. He hesitated, eyeing the floating platform warily. I've already embarrassed myself half a dozen times. Are you sure I should touch anything else? It might retaliate. Lysra tilted her head, amusement flickering in her dark eyes. The station reacts to intention, not fear. Curiosity guides it more safely than caution alone, though clumsiness does produce entertaining results. Elias took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform, which shifted slightly under his weight. The holographic constellations responded to his movement, swirling and aligning to create a miniature star map of the nearby systems. He stumbled, causing the map to ripple chaotically, and muttered, I swear these stars have a sense of humor too. They do, Lysra said, her lips curling into a faint smirk, and they appreciate those who attempt to navigate their currents, even poorly. He shook his head, laughing despite himself. Well, at least I'm providing entertainment. She extended a hand toward him, her black skin glinting in the soft light. Do not merely float. Engage. Influence the patterns. They will respond to you if you try. Ilias reached out tentatively, brushing his fingers against one of the holographic streams. The constellations shifted elegantly, folding and rearranging themselves into a spiral galaxy that seemed to float between them. Okay, wow, that is beautiful. Lysra watched him carefully, her long ears twitching with subtle approval. You are beginning to understand, not through knowledge alone, but through presence. That is rare in your kind. He blinked at her, a mixture of pride and disbelief swelling within him. Rare, huh? I'll take it. And I guess surviving this without being crushed by floating debris also counts as a skill? Some skill, yes, she replied. Though luck may be as important as skill here, and your luck has been amusingly consistent. Elias chuckled, pushing off a small floating console to move closer. Amusingly consistent. That's one way to put it. I was thinking more along the lines of accident-prone and slightly terrified. You have embraced it, Lysra said softly, stepping nearer. The air between them shimmered faintly as her presence seemed to bend the gravity subtly, drawing him closer despite his careful maneuvers. That is more important than perfection. Curiosity without fear is rare and valuable. He exhaled, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. Curiosity without fear, huh? I'll have to remember that. Probably on a graviton-inscribed memo somewhere in my brain. She laughed lightly, the sound resonating in the chamber, as if even the holographic stars appreciated it. Perhaps, but it is better remembered through experience. Elias glanced around the chamber, his gaze drifting over the floating gardens, the soft, holographic light, and Lysra herself. Despite the alien strangeness and the constant threat of mishap, he felt an unusual calmness. Humor, curiosity, and presence were guiding him more than any training or caution ever could. And somehow, he thought, I'm starting to actually enjoy this. Lysra observed him carefully, her long ears flicking in subtle amusement. Enjoyment is allowed, she said softly. In fact, it may aid in survival, and perhaps in understanding. Elias laughed again, a genuine sound that floated lightly through the chamber. He felt lighter, more attuned to the alien rhythms of the station, and somehow, despite every reason to panic, he trusted that Lysra's teasing guidance would keep him afloat, both physically and metaphorically. The chamber's lights shimmered in response to their presence, the floating constellations bending around them like a living tapestry, and Elias realized that the adventure was only beginning. Here, amid laughter, floating stars, and the teasing presence of a black-skinned vampire woman, he was learning what it meant to navigate the impossible, with curiosity, humor, and a sense of wonder. Elias floated cautiously through the next section of the station, where gravity shifted unpredictably and panels of holographic data projected themselves like floating islands in a vast digital sea. Every step required delicate adjustments, and he found himself using his arms like a frantic pilot trying to stabilize a rogue spacecraft. He muttered, I feel like a newborn in space, only with more panic and less coordination. Lysra glided ahead with effortless grace, her long ears twitching subtly as she adjusted to each gravitational anomaly. She glanced over her shoulder, a faint smirk on her dark, reflective lips. You are dramatic, human, but it suits you. It is entertaining. Entertaining is my middle name, Elias said, though he realized mid-sentence that it wasn't, and added quickly, well, figuratively speaking, not literally. She chuckled softly, the sound echoing through the corridor and vibrating lightly against the panels. Figurative or literal, it makes little difference. What matters is your engagement. Fear, humor, curiosity, they all mix to create a unique resonance. Elias tilted his head, trying to parse her words while keeping his balance. Resonance? I just hope I don't create a cosmic catastrophe by bumping into something. Perhaps, she said, her voice teasing, but even catastrophe has its own lessons, and laughter is a frequent companion. He rolled his eyes, muttering, lessons and laughter. Just what I needed in my life right now. They arrived at a wider platform suspended over a chamber filled with flowing streams of luminescent liquid, cascading like a zero-gravity waterfall. The streams glowed with shifting colors, emerald, violet, and faint silver, reflecting the station's artificial light and distant stars. Small creatures resembling translucent fish drifted through the liquid, leaving faint trails of sparkling particles behind. Ilias froze. "Oh no," he whispered. "I'm about to ruin this by panicking." Lysera's ears twitched. "Do not panic. Observe. Interact if you must. Fear hinders only the unwilling." He exhaled and reached toward a floating orb of the luminescent liquid, and it responded with a ripple that propagated through the chamber, adjusting the light patterns around them. "Okay, that's actually amazing. It's like the whole chamber is alive and playing with me." Lysera's eyes sparkled in the low light, her long ears flicking. "It is alive, in ways you cannot yet fully comprehend. The station, its creatures, even its gravity, they respond to engagement, not to caution." Elias smiled nervously. "I'm glad I have humor then, because caution is clearly not my strong suit." "Humor is vital," Lysera said softly, gliding closer. "It allows one to survive without paralysis. It allows one to experience the unexpected joys of interaction." He tilted his head, staring at her. "Unexpected joys, huh? And I suppose almost falling into alien liquid streams counts as one of those joys?" "Yes," she replied with a teasing smirk, "particularly when accompanied by astonishment and laughter. The combination strengthens presence." He laughed, a short, startled sound, realizing he hadn't felt this lighthearted in years. Even with the threat of slipping into the glowing liquid, he felt strangely exhilarated. "Well, if presence strengthens me, I guess I'm getting a workout just by panicking appropriately." Lysera's laugh rippled through the chamber. "Appropriate panic is an art, and you are learning quickly." Elias glanced around, noting the subtle gravity currents that shifted as Lysera moved. He attempted to mimic her movements, floating and twisting through the chamber in a clumsy imitation of the small, translucent fish-like creatures brushed against his arm, leaving a sparkling trail. "Okay, that is way cooler than anything I could have imagined." "Curiosity suits you," Lysera observed, floating beside him. "Even your clumsiness has value. It is proof of engagement, of effort." He smirked, trying to maintain balance. "Effort, clumsiness, curiosity. I feel like I'm earning some sort of bizarre alien merit badge." "You are," she said, her voice softening slightly. "Recognition is unnecessary. The station, the creatures, the constellations, they respond to sincerity, not formal acknowledgement." Elias nodded, floating through a shifting stream of color and light. "Sincerity, huh? I think I can manage that. Mostly. As long as I don't die or embarrass myself further." "Embarrassment is part of the process," Lysera said, brushing past him with the slightest of touches, her presence bending the gravitational pull subtly around him. "It is the difference between mere observation and real interaction." He tried to laugh, which came out as a nervous wheeze. "Observation is one thing. Real interaction with a black-skinned vampire woman who can bend gravity, that's a different skill set entirely." Lysera's long ears flicked in amusement. "Skill is less important than engagement, human. You engage fully, and that suffices for now." He exhaled, allowing a small smile to spread. "Engagement, curiosity, clumsy merit badges. I think I can survive this." She tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the luminescent liquid and the distant stars. "Survival is merely the beginning. Experience, humor, and presence. That is what shapes understanding." Elias looked around at the flowing, glowing streams, the floating creatures, and the teasing presence of Lysera. Despite the alien strangeness, the gravity anomalies, and the constant threat of missteps, he felt more alive than ever. Every stumble, every laugh, every ripple of curiosity seemed to tie him closer to the station, to Lysera, and to something beyond ordinary comprehension. And somehow, he thought, I'm actually starting to feel like I belong in a very strange, very alien way. The chamber hummed around them, alive with motion, light, and the quiet pulse of alien energy. Elias took a deep breath, ready to continue, comforted by the fact that humor, curiosity, and Lysra's guidance would carry him forward, through the impossible, the unexpected, and the utterly extraordinary. Elias floated through the next chamber, a mixture of awe and trepidation tightening in his chest. The floor beneath him was no longer solid. Instead, a network of interlacing energy bridges connected floating platforms that drifted lazily in the artificial gravity field. Small motes of light swirled around each bridge, giving the impression that the station itself had grown a constellation for him to navigate. He muttered, "I should have brought a manual, or at least a crash helmet for my dignity." Lysra moved ahead effortlessly, her long ears flicking as if adjusting to some silent rhythm only she could hear. "You are nervous," she observed, her voice playful but calm. "Do not mistake hesitation for weakness. Awareness is survival." "Awareness," Elias repeated, wobbling slightly as he grabbed for a glowing handrail, which promptly shifted beneath his fingers. "Awareness is apparently terrifying when the floor is moving and the lights are alive." "You exaggerate," she said, glancing back with a smirk. "Mostly, it is charming to see you flail with such determination." "I'll take charming," Elias said, floating forward with a careful push. "Better than humiliating, I suppose." "You are already both," Lysra teased, "but the station finds your flailing acceptable." He rolled his eyes, though a reluctant grin tugged at his lips. "Acceptable flailing? I think I'm becoming an expert at something." "Adaptation," she said softly, moving closer. "That is what counts." They reached a platform where the energy bridges converged, forming a delicate web of light that pulsed gently beneath their feet. Below, the void of the station stretched infinitely, dotted with miniature orbs resembling planets and drifting fragments of alien debris. The bridge hummed as Elias tentatively stepped onto it, and the lights shifted beneath his feet in response to his weight. "This is insane," he whispered. "It feels like walking on the spine of the galaxy itself." Lysra's lips curled in amusement. "Imagination may exaggerate, but your perception is correct. This section of the station is responsive. It shifts according to attention, intent, and courage." "Courage?" he repeated, clutching the glowing bridge. "I think I left mine back on Earth. Or maybe it's stuck floating in the corridor somewhere." "You have more courage than you believe," she said. "Clumsy courage." He exhaled, forcing himself to step forward. Each movement caused the energy bridge to ripple and adjust. Small drones zipped past, trailing faint arcs of light, and one collided gently with his shoulder, eliciting a startled laugh from him. "Okay, yes, definitely a walking hazard, but at least it's an entertaining hazard." Lysra's long ears twitched, and she reached out to steady him, her touch warm despite her alien appearance. "Entertainment has value," she said softly. "It teaches patience, observation, and humility." "I'm starting to think I'm getting a full curriculum here," Elias muttered. "Zero-gravity navigation 101, alien humor studies, and flailing with style." "Flailing with style is essential," she said, her dark eyes twinkling in the pulsing light. "Even mastery can be tedious without flair." He laughed, the sound echoing across the platform. For the first time, the fear that had dominated him since arriving seemed to ebb, replaced by a cautious thrill. "Flair, huh? I can do flair as long as I don't accidentally punch a floating orb or destabilize a gravity bridge." "You may, in fact, do both," Lysra said with a teasing tone. "But it will be educational." Elias groaned, looking down at the pulsing web of energy beneath him. "Educational, yes. Also terrifying, yes. Mostly terrifying, actually." "Mostly is acceptable," she said lightly, stepping closer and allowing her presence to bend the gravity subtly around him. He felt himself drawn slightly toward her, despite the precarious footing. "You make it sound almost comfortable," he said, glancing at her. "Comfortable while hovering over a void in a glowing energy web. Not many would call this comfortable." Lysra's laugh was soft, melodic, and it seemed to harmonize with the hum of the energy bridges. "Perspective changes with engagement. You are learning, human. Slowly, but you are learning." Elias nodded, taking a careful step. The bridge beneath him shifted, creating a ripple that made him stumble slightly, and he caught himself on a glowing railing. I'm learning, he admitted, laughing nervously. Mostly how not to die or embarrass myself, but learning nonetheless. Survival is merely the first lesson, she said, her long ears flicking with subtle amusement. Interaction, adaptation, humor, these are equally important. He floated closer, realizing that the station responded to more than just his weight and motion. It seemed to sense his curiosity, his fear, his laughter. Every ripple in the light web, every pulse of the energy bridge, mirrored his engagement with this alien world. So my panic, humor, and curiosity are feeding the station? He asked, incredulous. It's like a cosmic mood ring. Lizra tilted her head, a faint smile on her lips. A mood ring, a teacher, and a challenge. All at once. You will find it rewarding. Elias exhaled, a mix of nervousness and exhilaration coursing through him. Rewarding, yes, in a terrifyingly beautiful sort of way. Beauty often accompanies challenge, she said, moving alongside him. It is part of the design. He glanced around at the pulsing bridges, the floating platforms, and the distant void. Despite the chaos, the alien strangeness, and his own clumsiness, he felt a growing sense of wonder. Humor, curiosity, and the subtle guidance of Lesra were helping him navigate not just the station, but the extraordinary experience of encountering something utterly alien and unexpectedly captivating. And somehow, he thought, I'm starting to trust that even my flailing has purpose. The station hummed around them, alive with light, energy, and the faint pulse of alien intelligence. Elias felt a thrill he had never known before. The thrill of survival, of discovery, and of being drawn ever deeper into the orbit of a black-skinned vampire woman who had made him both terrified and enchanted all at once. Elias drifted into a new chamber, the air buzzing faintly with a low, resonant hum that seemed almost alive. The walls were translucent, revealing swirling clouds of luminescent gas outside, dotted with glinting fragments of rock and distant starlight. Every step, or push rather, made him feel as if he were threading through a living painting, one that responded to his presence with subtle shifts in color and sound. I swear, he muttered, this station is conspiring to make me feel like an interstellar ballet dancer, without any of the grace. Lesra glided effortlessly ahead, her black skin glinting softly in the ambient light, her long ears twitching with every subtle fluctuation in the chamber's gravity field. You exaggerate, she said over her shoulder, a teasing lilt in her voice. But there is charm in your panicked elegance. I'll take panicked elegance as a compliment, Elias said, twisting to avoid a floating cluster of energy motes. Better than catastrophic. Both have value, she replied. The universe rewards persistence as much as perfection. He groaned, steadying himself against a glowing panel. Persistence and perfection are apparently very different skills in zero gravity. Indeed, Lycera said, flicking her long ears in subtle amusement. But you adapt. That is more important than mastery. As they reached the center of the chamber, Elias noticed a vast array of floating conduits filled with pulsating energy, weaving in and out of crystalline nodes that projected shifting holographic landscapes. It was as if the station had folded entire worlds into this one chamber. Miniature simulations of planets, cities, and alien ecologies suspended midair. He blinked, half in awe, half in terror. You humans are easily impressed, Lysera remarked, her voice softening. But wonder is an excellent tool. Elias laughed nervously. Easily impressed, yes. Terrified, definitely. But I think I can handle the wonder part. Handle is a curious word, she said, moving closer. Engage rather than merely handle. Let the environment respond to your presence. He extended a trembling hand toward a floating crystalline node, and the energy inside pulsed, sending a wave of light spiraling outward. The chamber responded, the holographic landscape shifting in harmony with his touch. Okay, he whispered, eyes wide. That is incredible. Lysera's dark eyes glinted, her long ears flicking with amusement. Incredible, yes, but also instructive. Observe the patterns, predict the flow, Learn from the responses. I'm trying, Elias said, laughing softly, though my predictions mostly involve me falling into alien energy streams or accidentally sending a holographic city spinning into chaos. Chaos teaches more than order ever could, she said, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. And humor ensures you survive the lessons. He exhaled, letting himself float closer to one of the conduits, allowing the energy to swirl around his fingertips. Humor, huh? I've got that covered. Terrible grace and constant panic, plus a dash of inappropriate laughter. Perfect, she replied, gliding beside him. That is exactly the state of mind required for engagement. The chamber seemed to react to their combined presence. The energy conduits pulsed brighter, the floating holographic cities rotated smoothly, and the luminescent clouds outside shifted, forming patterns that mirrored their movements. Ilias felt a strange exhilaration, as if every stumble and laugh were woven into the living pulse of the station. So, my flailing is contributing to the station's artistry? He asked, half incredulous. In a manner of speaking, Lysera said, her voice soft and teasing. Even errors create beauty when intent and engagement are present. Your mistakes have value. He laughed aloud, spinning slightly to avoid a floating panel. Mistakes with value. That's a new one. Only in space could I feel simultaneously terrified, enchanted, and educationally valuable. Lysera's long ears twitched, and she reached out, lightly brushing his arm. The subtle gravitational pull shifted, drawing him closer. You are beginning to perceive the subtlety of your environment. That is progress. I'm also beginning to question my life choices, Elias muttered with a crooked grin. How did I end up floating through alien energy webs with a black-skinned vampire woman who can manipulate gravity and tease me mercilessly? You are asking the wrong question, she said softly, amusement flickering in her eyes. The right question is, how will you navigate it? With humor, curiosity, and presence. Not perfection. That comes later, if at all. He nodded, exhaling slowly as the hum of the chamber seemed to synchronize with his heartbeat. Every flicker of light, every ripple in the floating landscapes responded to him, not just to his weight or motion, but to his attention, his engagement, his curiosity. And somehow, he thought, I'm actually enjoying this chaos. Lysera's gaze followed him, dark and assessing, yet warm. Enjoyment is essential, she said softly. It sustains the observer and empowers the engaged, and it creates connection. He glanced at her, feeling the pull of her presence, both literal and metaphorical. Connection, huh? I think I can handle that, as long as it doesn't involve me falling into the void. Then you will learn, she said lightly, and laughing along the way will ensure your survival. Elias exhaled, laughter bubbling from him, as the chamber's energies flowed around them, alive, responsive, and entirely alien. For the first time, he felt that fear and fascination were not opposites here. They were intertwined, guiding him, teaching him, and drawing him ever closer to the enigmatic presence of Lysera, whose teasing smile and attentive guidance made the impossible seem not only manageable. Amid pulsing lights, floating cities, and the gentle hum of energy, Elias realized that he was no longer merely surviving. He was participating in something extraordinary, a dance of curiosity, humor, and engagement that transcended human expectations, and perhaps even his own understanding of desire and wonder. Elias drifted into the final chamber of the station, a vast expanse that seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction, punctuated by floating rings of glowing metal and orbiting crystalline spheres. The air thrummed with subtle energy, resonating in harmony with his own pulse, as if the station itself recognized the culmination of his journey. He exhaled slowly, taking in the spectacle, a galaxy condensed into a chamber, alive with motion, color, and light. Okay, he muttered, half to himself, half to the floating expanse. This is probably where I officially lose my mind. Lysera appeared beside him, moving with effortless grace, her long ears flicking in rhythm with the station's pulsing energy. She observed him carefully, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling constellations. You have changed, she said softly. You are no longer merely a visitor. You are participant, engaged, curious, aware. Elias laughed, a nervous, relieved sound. Participant, huh? I guess flailing counts for more than I thought, and surviving the zero-gravity ballet seems to have worked in my favor. You survived, yes, she said, her lips curling into a faint smile. And you have learned more than navigation. Observation, humor, adaptability, engagement, even courage. Subtle, human courage. It is valuable. He glanced around at the chamber, floating platforms spinning gently, energy conduits rippling in harmony, miniature planets orbiting crystalline cores. Everything responded to his presence, but it felt less intimidating now, more like an extension of his own awareness. I feel different, he admitted, like I'm part of it somehow, and not just because I keep bumping into things. Lysera's long ears twitched, a gesture that seemed almost like approval. You are part of it because you allowed yourself to engage fully. Fear, humor, curiosity, all integrated. That is rare. Elias floated closer, watching as the luminous orbs and rings adjusted to their combined presence, moving in subtle patterns as if dancing to an unseen rhythm. I never imagined that making mistakes, panicking, and laughing could feel like learning something profound, he said. I thought I'd just survive this station and maybe not die horribly. And you have done more than survive, Lysra said, her voice calm, melodic. You have participated. You have left an imprint, however fleeting. That is remarkable for a human. He exhaled, allowing himself a small, triumphant laugh. Remarkable, huh? I like that. I'll take that over catastrophic clumsiness any day. Lysra stepped closer, the gravitational pull around her subtly drawing him in. And now, your journey reaches resolution. The chamber, the station, even the constellations respond differently to you than before. You are changed. He glanced at her, dark eyes reflecting the luminous orbs. Changed, in a good way, I hope. Not just dizzy and exhausted. You are more than that, she said softly, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. You have learned to engage, to embrace uncertainty, to find humor amid chaos. You have grown. Elias exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the journey finally settle. The station's energy pulsed around him, synchronized with his own rhythm. I guess surviving alien energy fields, gravity shifts, floating holographic cities, and your constant teasing counts as a character-building exercise. It does, she said, tilting her head, long ears flicking lightly. And the lessons are lasting if you choose to carry them forward. He laughed, shaking his head. I think I'll carry them forward, along with a few bruises and a newfound appreciation for humor as a survival tool. Lysra's lips curved into a faint smile, and for the first time, Elias noticed a softness beneath the enigmatic allure she always radiated. Humor, engagement, curiosity. These are not just survival tools. They are bridges between understanding, between worlds, between beings. Elias floated closer, considering her words. The station's pulsing energy seemed to intensify slightly around them, as if echoing the truth in her statement. Bridges, huh? I think I understand now. It's not just about surviving or exploring. It's about connecting. Yes, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying weight. Connection. The most elusive and... He exhaled, a profound calm settling over him. He had come to the station as a visitor, clumsy and fearful, curious yet overwhelmed. Now he felt as if he had been reshaped, not just by the alien technology, not just by Lysra's enigmatic guidance, but by his own willingness to engage fully, to embrace uncertainty, and to find joy even in the chaos. So this is the end? He asked softly, a hint of reluctance in his tone. Lysra's dark eyes met his, long ears flicking in subtle acknowledgement. Endings are illusions, human. Every conclusion is also a beginning. You have learned, and that learning continues, Beyond these chambers, beyond this station, beyond even my presence. Elias smiled, feeling a sense of closure that was both gentle and exhilarating. A beginning. I can handle that. With humor, curiosity, and maybe a little more grace. She extended her hand, not in command, but in invitation. Then go forward. Engage, learn, live, and remember what you discovered here. He took her hand, the gravitational pull around them stabilizing naturally, the station responding to their combined presence. I will, and somehow, I think I'm ready for whatever comes next. Lysra's lips curved in a faint, approving smile. Good. That is all I could ask. Elias exhaled, floating amidst the luminous orbs, energy bridges, and crystalline spheres, feeling both small and infinite. He had entered the station uncertain, clumsy, and fearful. Now he left changed, stronger, more aware, and infinitely more curious. The chaos had become a rhythm, the alienness a connection, and the journey itself a testament to growth, humor, and the strange, beautiful power of engagement. As he drifted toward the exit, Lysra's presence beside him, he realized that the station, the stars, and the enigmatic vampire woman had given him more than survival. They had given him understanding, laughter, courage, and a bridge to the extraordinary, an adventure that would shape him long after he returned to the familiar pull of Earth. And for the first time, Elias felt completely certain that he would never see the universe,